Hi everyone, welcome to Portfolitics 1.0. This is our second lesson for our first project. In this lesson, we are going to be taking a look at cleaning our data set, like the transaction data set, the customer data set, and the product data set. But before moving on with the data cleaning, as we all know, for any data project, a good data set gives a good decision, while a bad data set leads to a bad decision. As the popular saying goes, garbage in, garbage out. Whenever you have an unclean data, definitely any decision that will be made on that unclean data will be very poor. But before moving on with the data cleaning process, there are some sanity checks that have to be performed on any data set that you have. Some of it includes removing duplicates, standardizing formats, validating ranges, and handling missing values, and handling outliers. For the first one over here, removing duplicates. Whenever you are cleaning a data set, try to hunt for those duplicates in your data set, because duplicates are just like a garbage in your data set. They reduce the accuracy. Take for instance, you are performing some modeling. If you have a duplicate value in your data set, it reduces the accuracy of that model that you are trying to model out. Likewise, for any decision also, it also retards that decision making. So whenever you have a data set, try removing the duplicate values. After that, whenever you have a data set, try to check for the formats of each columns. Take for instance, you have a data set that consists of, let's say, dates, and let's say another column that consists, let's say, amount. As we all know, dates, the standard format of dates is either maybe it's in dates or date time format, especially in Excel. Dates, date time format, and sometimes if it is related to time, it can also be in time format. Whereas for amount column, it must be a number, because majority of the values or entries in the amount column are numbers. So ensure that each and every fields or each and every feature in your data set has the appropriate format, is in the appropriate format. Also, after cross-checking that, also validate the ranges. This is applicable whenever you are working with a data set that has ranges. Take for instance, you are working with a student data set and it has a column called, let's say, CGPA. Schools here in Nigeria, majorly the CGPA varies from 0 to 5 points. Let's take for instance that as you are analyzing your data, as you are cleaning your data, you find out that for the CGPA column, we have some values like, let's say, 3.50, we have 4.50, then you came across a value that is, let's say, 10.2. This 10.2 here, it is suspect, because for this particular column, the highest value, the expected highest value here must be 5, and here is 10.2. So whenever you are working with a range data set, try as much as possible in cross-checking each entries in it. After doing that, the next stage is to undo the missing values in your data. Missing values are the null value or the empty values in your data set. However, handling this missing value, there are several ways of handling missing value. Let's say handling missing value. You can simply undo a missing value by deletion. Whenever you have a data set and the amount or the percentage of the missing value is relatively low, you make use of deletion. Whenever the percentage of the missing value is less than, let's say, 5% of your data set, you can simply delete those missing values out. Likewise, you can also undo missing value by imputation. Imputation means substitution. That is, by substituting a value for those missing value. You can simply substitute the mean or the median or mode for missing value, depending on the type of data set you are working with. Let's take, for instance, if you are working with a numerical data set, definitely you must make use of either the mean or the median. Whereas when you're working with a feature that is a categorical feature, that is a text feature, you have to make use of the mode if the missing value is greater than 5%. We make use of mean value whenever we have a distribution that is close to normal, because it's very rare for you to see a distribution that will be normal. Take, for instance, you have a distribution like this. Let's say something like this, which is very close to a normal distribution. When you visualize the feature, you use mean whenever you have a close distribution that is close to normal. If you have a distribution like this, it's advisable to use the mean value for those missing values. However, if you have a skewed distribution, whether it's left skewed or right skewed, take for instance, when you visualize your data sets, as in the feature of that, but the feature you are trying to input in, you find out that the distribution is somehow like this. Let's say something like this. Just pardon my drawing. This particularly, it's a right skewed distribution. All you have is distribution something like this, somewhere like this. Let's say something like this. This particular distribution is a left skewed distribution. Whenever you have a right skewed or left skewed distribution, the best way to undo it is to use median, because median is less sensitive to outliers. What's usually causes skewness in a data set is effect of, as in, it's part of effect of an outlier in the data set. The outlier might decide to skew the data whether right or left. So for a categorical feature, whenever you have a missing value in a categorical feature and you are trying to undo the missing value there, the best method to undo it is to use mode, that is the modal value, the highest occurrence, as in the highest frequently occurring value in the feature. You substitute that particular value in the data sets. So, and another way also of handling missing value, you can also use a predictive modeling. Then there you'll be using some machine learning model. Let's say predictive modeling. Then you can use some machine learning model to find the values, as in the nearest value for those missing values in there. Aside that, lastly, whenever you are cleaning a data set, part of the sanity check you need to check is outliers. Outliers are those values that are quite, as in obviously different from the rest of the entries. Take for instance, you are analyzing a data set or you are cleaning a data set and you find out that, let's say let's say CGPA also, for example, or let's take another example. Let's say amount or quantity rather. Let's say you have a quantity column in a data set, and majority of the entries in the quantity are like, let's say 2, 3, 4, 6. Then you find a value that has, let's say 1000. This particular value 1000, it's an outlier, because when you visualize this particular quantity column, it will definitely skew the data set whether right or left. But particularly this one that has most of this value that is in between, let's say 2, 3, 4, 5, it will skew the data right, as in it will be a right skew data set, because majority of the values are being concentrated to the left side of the distribution. So this 1000 is an outlier. Whenever you have an outlier in your data set, outlier doesn't mean deletion. You have to trace it back to your data set, because sometimes outlier might be a blessing to your cleaning process, and other way around, it can also affect your data set negatively. So you have to know how to handle outlier effectively by tracing it back to the value. This 1000 that is over here, or this 10,000 that is over here, might be a valid value when you cross-check your data sets. So we have to take cognizance of all this sanity check before cleaning any data sets. And this will help a lot in giving us a clean data set, and a clean data set will lead to a clean, as in a good decision. Alright, this is our data set. We have the customer data set, we have the product, and we have the transaction. Let's take a look at the first data set in here, which is the customer data set. As you can see, in the customer data set, we have the customer ID, the name, the gender, the email, and the remaining columns. As we explained earlier, that whenever we are cleaning a data set, we have to do some sanity checks. The first thing to do is to go through your data set. Whenever you have a new data set, just scroll over it and see what it entails. And as we can see from here, we can see that the names in here, like as in the names over here, the font as in the formats are quite different. Some are all caps like this, while some are a small letter, while some are in between like that. And also looking at the gender column, we found out that there are some misspelled names. Then this is our email. We have some unknown value in there. Then for the date of registration, there are some inconsistency in the date formatting. Then let's continue. And there are also some null value for the preferred payment method, like all these empty rows. There's some null value in there like that. So the first thing to do here is to find if our data set contain any duplicates. To do that, we'll click on the first row over here and press Ctrl A to highlight all. Then come to the data tab. Then remove duplicates. Make sure all these boxes are being checked, all these boxes in here, and click on OK. We can see that our customer data sets contain about 6 duplicates values. So after removing the duplicates, let's try and clean all those inconsistencies and the formatting of our data sets. For us to do this, we are going to be using Power Query Editor, as it's more easier and convenient in cleaning any data sets in Excel using as in Power Query. So we'll click on from table/range, and our data sets, a table will be created and it will be highlighted. Click on OK. Then from there, it will lead us to the Power Query Editor dashboard. Here is our data set now being loaded in the Power Query Editor. So looking at the customer ID, the first thing to check here is the format. Is it in the right format? As you can see, the data type here is in text format, which is correct for the customer ID, because our customer ID consists of signs, text, and numbers. So it's correct. Then for the name, as we made mention earlier on, that the naming formats are not the same. So for us to reformat it, simply click on Format, capitalize each word, and that will be resolved. The naming format is being resolved. Then for the gender column, there are some features, as in there are some entries that are being misspelled, like the male and female entries. So we can simply click on Replace Values and replace those misspelled entries. Take for instance the male, and we'll replace it with the correct proper spelling of male. Click on OK, and we can see that that has been resolved. And also for the female, I also replace that. with the correct spelling. Female, Femlae. We'll replace that with the correct spelling. Female, and we'll click on OK. So let us recheck the unique value in the gender column again. As you can see, now we have only female and male. We can also verify that through the slicer button, female and male. All right. Then moving next to the email section. For the email section, as you can see, there are some unknown in our email as an entries. There are some unknown entries in the email section, in the email column, but that is of less importance for this analysis. So we can skip that and move to the next column, which is date of registration. Date of registrations, as we can see that the date formatting is not consistent. So we can simply click on the column and click on data type and reformat it to date format. Now our date of registration has been in proper format, which is date format. Then moving next to the next column, which is our shipping address. For the shipping address, it's also less of importance for this analysis for now, but looking through it, we discover that it's a mixture of number, text, and some punctuations like that. But let's leave it and move to the next column, which is the preferred payment method. Looking at the summarizing, as in the summary of Power Query, we found out that there are some empty value, about 7 of them. And mind you, one thing about Power Query editor is that whenever you have a larger entry, like this our data sets, we have about 1,254 entries in there. Power Query editor only brings the first 1,000 rows or the first 1,000 entries. So in the first 1,000 entries here, we have 7 missing values. As you can see, empty out of 1,000. If you sum this one, 993 plus 7, if you sum them up, you have the 1,000 row. So there is a missing value, as in there are some missing value in here. Aside that, let's also check. As we go through it, let's filter out those unique values in there. You can see there are null value, and there are also some inconsistency, like bank transfer being named bank transfer also incomplete, as in incomplete spelling, credit card incomplete spelling, and the like. So we take care of all these. Let's firstly take care of all these misspelled word and the likes. Let's replace those values. Like for the bank here, we should replace it with bank transfer. Bank, we are replacing it with bank transfer. All right, we'll click on OK. Then for the credit card also being misspelled, we'll also change it to the correct spelling. All right, there are many inconsistencies in this bank transfer, so let us undo those parts first by replacing them with the correct spelling. Bank transfer. Bank. Transfer. We'll replace it with the correct spelling, which is bank transfer. Click on OK. Also, there are still some error, like this bank transfer. We'll replace all those with the correct spelling also. Bank transfer with the correct spelling, which is this. Okay. Bank transfer has been solved. I'll pause the video now and edit the remaining parts like the credit card, the credits, mobile payments, and the PayPal. Then we'll come back to the missing value, how to handle the missing value. Alright, now the preferred payment method column, those inconsistency in the spelling has been resolved. As you can see, we have bank transfer, credit card, and mobile payments now. Then there's some null value, that is, there's some missing value in the column. How can we handle this missing value? From here, we have the overview of the numbers of missing values, which is 7. There are 7 missing values in this column, and it's less than 1% of the total data set. So we can simply just use deletion by deleting those missing value. To achieve this, simply click on remove empty, then click remove empty, and that will be resolved. Now the missing value in the preferred payment method has been taken care of. Now we have a 0% missing value. So we also have the preferred categories. Let's check the unique values in the preferred category column. We can see in here there are also some inconsistency in the spelling of the namings, like the groceries, fashion, electronics, home appliances, books that are being misspelled. We'll take care of this in a couple of why. I'll pause the video now, then I'll come back later. Alright, we can see that the preferred categories now has been, all those names has been in correct proper format. Click on OK. Then lawyer point. Let's see. The lawyer points also have some incorrect entry, like this negative sign in here. A customer can never have a negative lawyer point. The least that a customer lawyer point can be is 0. That is empty, as in it doesn't have any, he or she doesn't have any lawyer points. But having a negative lawyer point means there is a mistake in the entry. And also for the analysis, let us firstly take care of this inconsistency in here, like replacing this minus with a positive sign, changing negative 1,317 points to positive, and also 1,152 to positive. We can simply replace this also by using the replace value. We are replacing minus 1317. We are replacing it with the positive 1317. Click on OK. And let's recheck again. That has been resolved. Then for the second one, which is negative 1152, replace minus 1152. We are replacing it with positive 1152. And click on OK. So now our lawyer points column is now in proper order. So let's move next to the next column, which is phone verified. Let's check those unique values in it. Those unique values are yes or no. Load more. Yeah, it's good to go. Let's move on to the next column, which is the last column, email verified. Email verified also is complete, yes or no, without any inconsistency there. So from there we can simply close and load the data set. Alright, these are our clean data sets, and these are former data sets, that is unclean data sets that we used. That's the beauty of our Power Query. It helps you to create a sheet as another sheet independent of the original data set. For instance, if you make any mistake when cleaning the data set, you can still come back to the original data set and make any necessary adjustments. So these are new clean data sets. We can save this to a separate sheet in order for it to be to be properly arranged. Let's save this by clicking on move or copy. We are saving it in a new book. Click on new book, click OK. And now our clean data set is now in new book. Let's save it as clean customer. Let's save this as clean customer. Clean customer. Let's save it in CSV file, in a CSV format, so that whenever we are entering it inside our MySQL database, it will be more easier for us. Save it as a CSV. Here, save. And now we are done with the customer data set. Let's move ahead to the next data set that we have. These are clean customer data sets. Next to the product data sets. Here is our product data set, and we have some column like the product ID, the product name, the unit price, category, stock, and the rest. Let's firstly check if there is any duplicate values in our data set. Come to tab, Control A to highlight all the columns. Tab, remove duplicates. Make sure all these boxes are being checked, because whenever you are cleaning, you are removing your duplicates and one of these column is unchecked, that means that the duplicated value in that column won't count. So for it to count, we have to check through all those the boxes. Click OK, no duplicates found. All right. There's no any duplicates in our data sets, but that doesn't guarantee that our data set is clean. Let's transform the data set in Power Query. Click on from table/range and OK. All right, this is the Power Query editor. Let's check each column and check the data type, whether they're in a valid data format. Click on product ID and come to transform. We can see there's not any empty value there. That is, there's no any missing value. There's no any error. And also the data type is in text format, which is good. Next to the product name. For the product name, we have about 15 entries. Then the data type is also text format, and there's no any null value. Likewise, there's no any error in this column. Let's move on to the next, which is the unit price. The unit price also, here's the distribution for the new unit price. Majority of the price are in between 150 to 1000. Okay, it's not properly arranged, but most of the prices are 150, 120, 130, 140, like that. And also let's check the data type. The data type is O number, which is correct. And likewise, let's check whether there is any negative value there. As you can see, it starts from 30, 35 downward. So because a unit price must not be a negative value, so we have to confirm that also. Click on OK. Then moving next to the category column. These categories are being arranged well compared to the customer data sets. We have the electronics, we have the fashion being correctly spelled, and home appliance, books. Let's move on to the stocks. For the stocks also, stock likewise doesn't have any empty value and it doesn't have any error in there. Let's check if there is any negative value in there also. None. All right. Okay. Then for the popularity score, let's check for the popularity score. There's no any empty value, there's no any error in there, and there's no any null value. Next to the return rate. Return rates, that is the percentage or the proportion of returning the product back to the business or to the company. And it's in percentage, this 10%, 15%, 5%, and the likes. So it ranges from 5 to 20. That is, the minimum value is 5% and the maximum value is 10%, 20%. Is there any negative value? No. All right, let's move on to the cost price. The cost price of the product. That is the selling price. The unit price, yeah, this is the unit price, and this is the cost price. So the cost price also is ranging from 1,540 to from 21 to 1,540, and it's good enough. So there's not any inconsistency in that side also. So simply we can save and load. All right. Here is our clean data set, our clean product data set, and here is the original data set in here. So let's simply save this in a new book. New book. Click on OK. This is the new book, which is book 2. Let's rename it to clean product. Clean product. Clean product. We can simply change this to CSV format and click save. So we are done with the second data set, which is the product data set. Let's move on to the next data set, which is our transaction data set. Here's the clean customer data set and the product. Then to the last, which is the transaction data set. Here's the transaction data set. We have the transaction ID, the customer ID, the cart stats, timestamp, and the likes. So let's check if there's any duplicate value in here. Control A, come to the data tab, click on remove duplicates. Make sure all these boxes are being checked and click OK. All right, there are 9 duplicate values in this data set. Click on OK. Then next, let's transform the data set using Power Query. Click on OK. Our data set is loading in Power Query editor. All right. As we can see, we can spot it directly that the transaction timestamp is not, as in the format, is not unique or true. So we'll adjust that. But let's start with the transaction ID. The data type of this is in text, which is good. And there's no any empty value, there's no any error in the column. Then for the customer ID column also, it's also in text format, which is good. And there's no any error in there. Then for the cart start timestamp, we can see that the data type here is any, and which is incorrect. Let's change it to date format. So it's in proper format, that is date format. Also check looking at through the transaction timestamp. It has a reason why. The reason why we are not changing this cart start timestamp to date time format. The reason why we are not doing that is that we are not, our analysis in this project is basically on the effects of the 15% discount on all the products. Is basically, we just want to measure the effects of that 15% discount on our products. Take for instance, adding this analysis is looking into fraud detection and the likes. The time is also very important in this aspect, as in the time of transaction is very important. But we are simply putting it in date format with regards to our project scope. So click on that. Then also for the transaction timestamp, We also change the date, the format, data type to date format. Then transaction duration. The transaction duration also, there's no any negative time in here. Yeah, but there's null value. There are some null value in this column. That is the transaction duration. Let's check those values that are null. Okay. As you can see, even though the transaction duration column, when viewing it, it's not bringing any empty value percentage as we saw in the customer data set. But the reason why it brings this like this is because when we are highlighting our data set the other time, as when we are removing the duplicates, we highlighted some column, as in some entries, some rows beneath our data set. That's why you see the transaction ID here is null. Here also null, meaning it's just empty sheets in here. Everything is null or true. So adding mean there are null values in the entries for the transaction duration. Power Query will highlight it as what, as an empty value. So this is is negligible. So we'll leave it and we'll continue. Then for the products purchased, also the data type is text, which is correct, and also there's no any null value and error in there. Then let's continue with the quantity column. The quantity column varies from 1 to the distribution 1 to 5, where the minimum quantity is 1 and the maximum is 5. It's also good and fine. Let's validate that. This null that we are seeing here, the same explanation also hold for it as that of our products purchased. I mean, the null in here is still the same thing as those null values that are here. So we can simply neglect that and continue with our cleaning process. So this is our payment method. Let's look into the payment method. All the values are unique: bank transfer, credit, mobile payments, and PayPal. Click on OK. Then for the device used, these are the device used also. These are the unique values in the desktop, tablet, and mobile. They are all incorrect as in formatting, and there's no any misspelled value there. Any null value you see here, provided that Power Query is not highlighting, bringing any as in a red sign or an remove empty value in here, consider the column that there is no any missing value or null value in there. So browser ID, these are browser ID like the Edge, Chrome, Safari, Firefox. Even though there are some inconsistency in the formatting, we can simply just as reformat that to, let's say, capitalize each word so that this Safari and the likes will be in capital letter. Yeah. So let's move ahead with our IP addresses. For the IP address, okay, the IP address is also as in good condition. Then check the data type. The data type here is what? Is text, which is correct for an IP address because it consists of numbers and punctuation, which is this dot, this full stop in here. Then suspicious flag is either false or true. We can reformat the entry to be capitalize each word so that we have something like this. So it's also in text format. Then abandoned. These are the entries for abandoned. No, there are some entries that denote no with N. So let us replace those entries. Let's say N. We replace N with no and click OK. All right. Although there's still some inconsistency there, like this double O, like for double O's for no's. Let's check all of them and undo them once and for all. like this, no with double O. Let's replace it with the proper no. We are replacing it with NO. Click on OK. So let's recheck if that has been resolved. Load more. So we have our no and yes. All right. Next to the delivery status, click on it. Delivery status: pending, delivered, cancelled, delayed. All right. Seems like it's improper. All right. Delayed, delivered. All are being correctly spelled. Okay. Then expected delivery dates. We can reformat this in dates format instead of being in dates time format for our analysis. So let's change this to dates. So next to the discount, for the discount product, discount starts from 0 to 0.2. This is in percentage. That is, 0.2 means as in 20% discount. 0.19 means 19% discount. So lastly, for the final column here, which is the region column, we have Africa, North America, Asia, Europe, and South America and Oceania. So although like Africa, Europe, their formatting is not as in rhyming with the rest of the entries. So let us format that in capitalize each word. All right, now we can see that everything is in correct order. Let's close and load our data sets. All right, this is our new clean data set. We can simply save this in a separate book. New book, okay. And let's save it as clean transaction. Data, clean transaction. So let's save it in CSV format. Click on save. All right, and that's all for our data cleaning process. In the next video, we shall be looking into importing our data sets into our MySQL, and also how to automate new entries in the Excel sheet or the CSV file into MySQL database. Thank you so much for listening. See you in the next video.